So Looper is kinda dumb, and it's nowhere near a bad movie, but with the amount of people that consider it absolutely flawless, I thought I'd give my 2 cents on it. The first thing that you need to understand is that the majority of what I'm discussing has to do with the time travel. So yes, I am aware that the time travel is being used as an excuse to tell a story and not the main focus of the film, but I think it's fun to explore those ideas. And if you don't find any enjoyment out of that, then you should probably watch something else. Just saying. So the year is 2044. Time travel hasn't been invented yet, but 30 years from that time it will have been. But the technology is so super awesome in the future that nobody can commit murder and get away with it. So the most powerful crime mob sends people back in time to be killed so that they can do it without getting caught. So it's super hard to get away with murder but not a kidnapping. It's implying that even if you burn a body in the future, there would be some way to detect a murder. But wouldn't anything you send back to the past also count as evidence towards you in the future? In present time, there are countless cases that have been reopened due to DNA evidence for crimes that happened in the 1970s. So given that forensics are all beefed up in the super future, wouldn't whatever evidence they could use still be there but just be 30 years old? Why is it that there's no risk in kidnapping someone in the future? They've got tagging and super forensics, but no one can figure out if someone's been abducted? And if it's implied that the tagging is some sort of tracking device, would there not be some sort of recorded data that shows that every single missing person just happens to vanish and completely go off the grid as soon as they hit the exact same location? AKA where the time machine is? I do appreciate that this movie leaves some up to the imagination. There are plenty of subtleties that let you figure things out for yourself that don't need to be explained. You can tell that there's some sort of financial crisis in the future where the gap between rich and poor has gotten greater, and it's not really something that needs to be explained because it's not vital to the story. But at the same time, it's not as if those parts were left unexplained because they didn't make sense. The rich and poor struggle is an all too common theme in movies, so we as audience members already have a pretty good idea of how it plays out. As for the talk about how things work in the future though, and by that I mean the future and why nobody can kill each other, it's a concept that's exclusive to the movie. So even if you as a filmmaker don't answer those questions, it's usually a pretty good idea to have it at least make enough sense so that fans can fill in the gaps. Or maybe I'm just crazy. The film briefly mentioned something called TK, which I'm assuming stands for telekinesis. They then tell you that they just mentioned it for no reason.
Turns out this was it. Now it's just a bunch of assholes think they're blowing your mind floating quarters.
But anybody who's seen any movie ever will know that it comes to play a role later in the film. Not to say there aren't any cool little additions to make the universe look distinct. Like the eye drugs. Damn, I want to try me some of those eye drugs. Don't drive high on eye drugs, you could hit somebody. Jesus, how is he still on top of the car? I feel like slamming on the brakes with him sitting there with no seatbelt would have sent him flying forward, but it's the future. The movie explains how time travel in the future is so illegal that they have to kill everybody that works for them. So when they want to kill you in 30 years from now, they send you back in time so that you can kill yourself. And hopefully they've trained you well enough to have such quick reflexes that you kill them before even realizing that it's you. But would it not make a fuck ton more sense to send somebody to be killed by a looper that isn't themselves? The reason why this guy figures out that it's himself in 30 years is because he starts singing a song that's familiar to him. But if they just sent that guy to be killed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt instead, it would have had no effect. So why the fuck does it have to be the same person? Anyway, now he's trying to hide out at Joseph Gordon-Levitt's place because the mobsters know that he didn't close his own loop. And considering they have some unexplainable way of knowing whether or not you closed your loop, you'd think that that means that they kind of expect a possibility of you letting them run free. And you'd also think that considering everybody in the future sending the bodies back is making decisions based on the past, they could just determine that, hey, 30 years ago this happened and we did it wrong, so why don't we do it this way? The future mobsters not fixing such a rookie mistake is an impossibility, because you're in the future. If a mistake is visible 30 years ago, you're gonna know about it. The reason why I wouldn't criticize a movie like 12 Monkeys for this is because Looper is a movie that shows results of being able to change the future by changing the past. 12 Monkeys and other great time travel movies operate with the intention of changing the future by changing the past, but never showing any real results. This is essential to creating a time travel movie that at least makes a little bit of sense. Because if your intent is to go back in time and change something so that it never happened, once you become successful in your goal, then it never will have happened. And thus you never would have traveled back in time to prevent it. So then you would have, and then you wouldn't have, and then you would have, and then you wouldn't have. It's dumb as all fuck. So it's usually best to keep it contained inside a closed loop, which is not something that Looper does. And don't get me wrong, you can still make a time travel movie with characters that affect the past in a way that changes the future. future. Primer's a great example of this, but it's a film designed to confuse you and have you ask questions about it. I had to watch the movie 7 times before I finally figured out what's going on, and even now I'm not too sure. With Looper, they introduce the concept that each timeline has a direct effect on the other, and then they just tell you not to think about it.
Having time travel kind of play its part in the story and set up this situation, and then get out of the way so that the characters and the story hopefully take you through to the end and you aren't just thinking about timelines the whole time.
You know, if you actually did leave it alone like you just said you did, then I as an audience member would be able to not think about it, but you didn't leave it alone. You just kept fucking with it. The mob catches his current younger self and uses him as a way to catch his older self. So they scar a message into the younger guy's body, and the 30 years later guy is like, oh, I see that message on my arm now. But why would he see it now when it wasn't made now? For him, the time it was made was 30 years ago. So in reality, if this were possible, he wouldn't be saying, hey, why is this happening to my arm right now? He'd be saying, hey, remember 30 years ago when that happened to my arm? That was retarded. And there would be nothing influencing him to remember it at that specific moment in time. They try to explain it much later in the movie by throwing in this line.
I can remember what you do after you do it.
And that might be an okay excuse as something you don't have to think about if it was just scar tissue left in the arm. But then they take it a step further, and another step further, and another step further.
It's much more like the first Terminator, where time travel sets up this situation, and then the situation really takes over from there.
So it's implying that each of his body parts that he's losing is being lost to his past self, but in present time.
Say you cut off the finger of the young man, the old version of the man, his finger disappears and there's like a dead, like scarred wound there. And so if you start torturing the young man, that old version of that man will come to save him. And so that kind of thing that like you can, if you and your older self are in the same world, you can communicate physically through the body, like you know something's happening because your fingers start going missing or your leg missing or your ear missing, and that kind of way people actually start to use it to send messages to each other, and that kind of thing really interested me.
Having time travel kind of play its part in the story and set up this situation and then get out of the way.
But you have to keep in mind that he's a man from the future, because once it starts getting really ridiculous and starting to cut off his fucking foot, then you're forced to ask yourself more questions. Like, if he grew up 30 years ago without a foot, then how did he run away when he went back in time? Not only that, but it shows him driving a car. Not only that, but how did he operate the brakes in the first place? It doesn't make sense for him suddenly not being able to do something when the event that causes that is 30 years in his own past. If you notice this and understand that it's flawed and just don't let it bother you, that's perfectly fine by me. But enjoying a flawed movie and calling a movie flawless are two completely different things. And I'm afraid I've heard the latter far too many times for this movie. Hell, even when I was 12 years old and I watched The Butterfly Effect for the first time, that bothered me. If you did something to yourself in your past, that doesn't make it magically appear in the future. That makes you grow up with it. So anyway, they surgically remove more and more of the younger version's body so it affects the older one, but by the time he gets there, they just kill him. So based on the fact that he's there and they just killed him, does that mean that the younger version escapes and then grows up and then gets captured again, but he has no limbs, so how does he run away? How does he get into the car? How does he get to this point on the fence if he doesn't have fucking legs? But wait a minute, what about that conversation earlier?
You gonna kill him?
Not if we can help it. Be too cataclysmic a change for the future.
Now you could say that he was lying to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but if that was the case, then why didn't they actually just kill his past self? Why did they need to cut off all of his limbs in an elaborate attempt to get his future self to come up to them so that they can finally kill him directly? Wouldn't have shooting his past self in the head have done the same thing, except a lot easier and less complicated?
Now, what we'll do is dangerous in that regard, so not as dangerous as killing them.
If the only reason they didn't do that is honestly because it would affect the future too much, then how is cutting off all of his fucking limbs a solution at all? How would you even remotely consider shooting him in the head as being a step further? Whatever, he sold out his friend and now he doesn't have to give up half of his silver. We're in the future, so why the hell has currency been demoted to giant bricks? So now Joseph Gordon-Levitt is doing his usual and something's a bit off about today. It looks like his victim's late, so that immediately arouses suspicions. Oh shit, it's myself in 30 years. Good thing money is not made out of paper still, or else he might be dead right now. He wakes up and smashes his phone chip because they have some crazy unexplained way of knowing whether or not you closed your loop. But it's a good thing one of the mobsters left the joint and then walked into the other room for no reason so that Joseph Gordon-Levitt could see them coming. You know, trapping that guy in the safe made a lot of noise. You'd think his partner would have shown up a bit sooner. The movie then jumps 30 years into the past, and by the past I mean it's like earlier in the day. But the Joseph Gordon-Levitt that you see is actually the same guy is the Bruce Willis that you saw earlier. And although they already were the same person, the outcome is different for no reason. He kills himself and then we get a montage of Joseph Gordon-Levitt transforming into Bruce Willis. But I kind of wish the change was a bit more gradual instead of just seeing different costumes for Joseph Gordon-Levitt and then suddenly Bruce Willis with a hairpiece. Anyway, he grows up and oops, the mob's after him now because that's part of the deal. Can someone tell me what the point of threatening someone with a gun is if you can't kill somebody in the future and everybody knows it? I would just be like, fuck you guys, what are you gonna do, kill me? Why is the house on fire? Are they trying to make it look like they died in a house fire? I thought the whole point in sending them back in time was that forensics teams could figure that shit out. So they're about to send him back in time and they need to take his handcuff things off to put the jacket on. And so they're putting them back on and he just decides to go ape shit and fucking just kills all of them. And I'm not sure how 2 of them died, but he strangles this one, but the other 2, they're just dead anyway. So we all remember how this Bruce Willis is the exact same guy who 30 years ago killed an older version of himself, right? So if he's now that older version of himself that got sent back in time with a bag over his head, why isn't that the case now? Why would something have happened differently this time and not the last time? It's supposed to be the exact same time. The 2 times are supposed to be the same, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Was there no handcuff malfunction the first time? It looks like it was all because of the goons. So now we have to assume that for absolutely no reason, this is the first time that he makes it back and doesn't get killed. Bruce Willis jumps in on the scene that we were left with earlier and carries the unconscious Joseph Gordon-Levitt to safety. So now the mob is super pissed. I mean, they want him dead for a reason, right? If the loop isn't closed, then they're liable. I mean, what if he's left alive? No, really, I mean, like, what if he's left alive? Why do they even care if somebody escapes, honestly? You can't really nab someone for using time travel when it hasn't even been invented yet. Oh no, Bruce Willis is gonna wait like another 30 years and then arrest them. If they're worried about Bruce Willis blabbing about time travel in the past, then why aren't they worried about Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing so? What could Bruce Willis possibly do that the younger version couldn't do? I mean, once you send someone back in time, is there even really a point of killing them afterwards? Why don't you just send them to the 1960s? No one's gonna believe them that they're sent back in time. There would be no reason to kill them at all. They could just grow old. And does the time travel also control the location of where they're traveling to? You'd have to assume that it does unless you think this place has changed so much in 30 years that this is the exact same location. I mean, if the time machine was in someone's basement, would they just get teleported into a wall of dirt? You'd have to have some control over the location of where you're time traveling to. But how do you know if there isn't like a bird flying by when you do it? Would you just teleport and then suddenly there's a bird in your chest? It's easy to play with those ideas when you're thinking of other physical objects being in the way, but people forget that air is just as physical. He's not teleporting into nothing, he's displacing air. So either it all moves out of the way really fast somehow, or it just fucking disappears. So I think it's safe to say that they have some influence over where they're being time traveled to. So instead of making the person kill themselves, why don't they just time travel him into the center of the Earth? Or time travel him into space? Hell, you wouldn't even need to send him back 30 years. Clearly you have a dual functioning time machine and teleporter, so why don't you just use the teleporter side of it? Apparently forensics in the future are so high tech that if you teleported someone into the center of the Earth's core, they would know about it. Moving on, Bruce Willis has escaped and Joseph Gordon-Levitt really wants to get his attention, so he mutilates his own arm with a message. I've already explained why that doesn't really make sense, so let's just go with it. I do appreciate that this movie is a little bit self-aware. There's kind of a nod to the audience as soon as Joseph Gordon-Levitt starts asking questions about time travel.
Doesn't matter!
But wait, I just want to know at what point in my future do my earlobes get detached? Anyway, we get a nice little flashback letting us know exactly what happened when Bruce Willis got kidnapped. It turns out he's here because he's trying to stop his wife from getting murdered. But why didn't the previous version of himself that Bruce Willis already killed 30 years ago have the exact same motives? What's different about it? Also, they just killed someone in the future. I thought they couldn't kill anybody. They just killed somebody like right then. This isn't very consistent. You clearly have stun weapons you brought with you. Why didn't you just use those? You don't have like a tranquilizer gun or a taser? Why would you even bring a gun? Honestly, if you needed to kill her, you could have just tranquilized her and then sent her back in time with Bruce Willis or something. Fucking dumb. And now that I think about it, do they have time machines in every country on the planet? Because it doesn't seem like there's any specifications in their contract over where they can live once they get their pay date. Joseph Gordon-Levitt already mentioned that he wanted to move to France. Then Then he moved to Shanghai. But is the time machine in Shanghai? Or did they kidnap him and then smuggle his body across the border to a time machine in the United States and then send him back in time? If it's hard to get away with murder in the future, wouldn't it be even harder to get away with smuggling a body across the fucking ocean? Just don't think about it and pretend that time travel isn't an integral part of the plot. We make our way to this character and there's a nice little subtlety to let us know that she's trying to quit smoking. Joseph Gordon-Levitt starts suffering from eye drug withdrawal symptoms, and she spots this right away, and she doesn't take his gun away, and then she lets him sleep with his gun. Meanwhile, Bruce Willis is dicking around trying to find the kid that grows up to be the huge crime boss that sends him back in time. Apparently this guy is closing all the loops and starting a bunch of shit, and Bruce Willis has narrowed it down to 3 possible suspects. So he kills the first child, and he has to know that it's not the right one, because otherwise he wouldn't be there, and he clearly feels really bad about it. But if he felt really bad about it, there is a possibility that he could have done this without killing that kid at all. He could just turn himself into Joseph Gordon-Levitt and be like, okay, I'll let you kill me, but I gotta tell you one thing. When you grow up and you decide to do this, even if you don't want to do it right now, don't go for that kid. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt would know that, so that when he grows up and tries to do the exact same thing, that kid would never die. Well, at least it buys these guys some time if Bruce Willis is going for the other kids first. Now they can start preparing so that when Bruce Willis shows up, he won't be able to kill this woman's child. Or at least that's what they should be doing. But if Joseph Gordon-Levitt remembered anything from the diner conversation earlier, he'd know that the best way to keep her safe is to remove himself from the equation. As soon as you think of an idea of how you're going to try and trick your future self knows about it, right?
I can remember what you do after you do it.
So what he should be saying is, hey, why don't you get the fuck out of here since we know that he's coming, and just don't tell me where you're going. If Joseph Gordon-Levitt doesn't know where she is, then Bruce Willis won't. Why the fuck are they staying at the farm? You might say that the only reason she's staying there is so that Bruce Willis will show up there so that Joseph Gordon-Levitt can kill him. So why doesn't he just take her phone number and say, okay, I'll call you when this is all blown over? That way Bruce Willis will remember that Joseph Gordon-Levitt did that, and he'll know that the only way to find her and kill her child is to go through Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And you might say that wouldn't work because then Bruce Willis would automatically know the phone number once she gave it to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but she could always write down the location of where she's going on a piece of paper and then give it to Joseph Gordon-Levitt to stick in his pocket without looking at it, and then Bruce Willis will have to kill Joseph Gordon-Levitt to get it, which he can't do because he is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And at that point, Bruce Willis is fucked. I mean, what is he gonna do? Kill the past version of himself and thus kill himself? He might as well just throw in the towel at that point. Too bad nobody thought about this. Anyway, now one of the mobsters is creeping around looking for Joe, but he can't find him, so he just takes off. Joseph Gordon-Levitt decides it's safe to step out from cover like 5 seconds after that car leaves. Hey guys, remember that TK? Or just remember that it exists, please. Anyway, now it's totally confirmed that this is in fact the kid that Bruce Willis is looking for, because he does have psychic powers. It's a good thing they mentioned TK twice earlier in the movie. And it's too bad that he doesn't demonstrate those psychic powers before Bruce Willis kills the other kid. It's also too bad that apparently the crime boss in the future is a super secret crime boss and nobody actually knows what gender they are, because Bruce Willis was just about to kill a little girl. Okay, so now you're gonna use the taser. I thought you wanted this guy dead. When Joseph Gordon-Levitt finally realizes that this kid is actually dangerous, he realizes how much he's gonna fuck up the future and decides that he actually should probably kill him now. When actually faced with the opportunity, he decides he can't do it. But where did that woman go? I thought she was gonna try and stop him from killing that kid. She's taken a long time to get here. I thought she was like right behind him. Was this for dramatic effect? Where'd she go? Oh, there you are. You were right behind him. How did you show up 54 seconds later? It's a good thing that he decided not to do it.
All right, now 2 things have happened. My Luke knows Sid's the kid he's looking for, and my gang knows I'm here. Back up the Gatman's truck, drive north away from the city.
Why would you tell her that? Now Bruce Willis is gonna remember that you told her that and then just go to the north of the city, right? Whatever, I guess it doesn't matter because he's busy killing everyone. Well, now the two meet again, but did Bruce Willis not know that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was gonna try and stop him on the highway? Anyway, some shit happens and then she decides to drive towards the guy shooting at her. That's smart. Just as soon as Joseph Gordon-Levitt shows up to intervene, he realizes that the only reason any of the bad shit in the future happens is because Bruce Willis goes back in time to try and stop it. So he decides to do the noble thing and take his own life, and thus preventing Bruce Willis from killing the kid. And so he just disappears, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we're going by the logic that was presented earlier in the film, that somehow the future self would still be there even if you remove every single possible opportunity for the past self to grow up and do such, I mean, the guy had no legs, so you have to assume that once he grows up, he's not gonna be sent back in time 30 years and then run away from the person trying to kill him, which is himself. So if you're going by the logic presented earlier, shouldn't Bruce Willis just turn into an aged corpse? Why did he disappear? It's almost as if they're implying that because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's no longer around, he wouldn't have done this in the future, and therefore Bruce Willis shouldn't be there. Which would make sense if they didn't have that fucking earlier scene! The end.
Would you be tempted, lured into Looper 2?
No.
So I hope you enjoyed my analysis of this film that everybody seems to think is flawless. I enjoyed it! And remember, it's nowhere near a bad movie. There are a lot of subtleties I enjoyed about the film, and I did find myself vaguely interested in what was happening. And by exploring the concepts presented in this film, I'm only doing what a diehard fan should be doing. After watching this movie, my only thoughts are, I want to see Brick. So I hope you had fun watching, because if acknowledging these inconsistencies ruined the movie for you, then maybe you should be watching other movies. Like Death Race 2. That was a fucking masterpiece.
And it'll send me to the ground, to reality. And don't deal with my disparity. Do you love me now? Do you love me now? Do you love me now? Don't you love me now?
What does this mean? Oh, what the? Oh! Whoa! Whoa!